All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What up, everybody? Oh, through the raindrops, through the flood, through the power outages. It's all so brutal. California is a mess. I don't care what part of the state you're in right now. It is really nasty. Wow. These are my credibility glasses. I put them on when I want to gain a little edge of credibility, but right now I don't need them.
Thank you.
That is Kim. We love Kim. So glad Kim is with us. You know, the thing about Kim is...
Kim, how are you?
That she plays hurt, and she's a little hurt today.
Yeah.
Her voice is a little, little, what would you say? Just a little off-center? Is that because of a cold, or what's the problem?
Yeah, I've got a cold, and it's got that kind of Kim Carnes throaty, Betty
Carnes.
Davis eyes thing going on.
Sure.
But it interspersed with a kind of a cough, so you'll see my mute button flashing a lot today. Yeah.
Maybe Kim Carnes would have been better if she'd interspersed with a cough. You know, that might have been a thing that she could have helped her, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, well.
Kim, how are you?
All right, and Tony joins us today.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony is here for Albert today, which is very cool. So, Tony, feel free to chime in anytime.
Oh, yeah.
Usually he's only here when we're bleeding out and we have to put up the
We're
bad
close. We might be close to
much
bleeding
to do.
out. I don't know.
This could be the best show ever coming up today. It's hard to say that without Albert in the mix, but I will tell you that it's a pretty terrific program. First of all, Wednesdays, John Rothman joins. He has political analysis, and I will challenge him on a statement he made. I challenged him a bit last week, but I'll challenge him a bit more this week. It has to do with the Fed. But John is a super smart guy, so I really tend to yield a lot to what he thinks.
Two master debaters going head to head.
Yeah, in a sense. I've got a big law and disorder story or two. One is the situation in Ohio with the Palestine derailment and the legal. Now, we talked about this when it was happening. We said there'd be major lawsuits, and now there are.
Here they come.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I've got a thought. What's that?
I said, yeah, here they come. Here come the lawsuits.
Yeah.
Even the state of Ohio is getting involved. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So also a follow-up on the Batmobile incident that was going down on the peninsula. We'll update that in Law and Disorder. Yeah,
Awesome.
There was actually an official inquiry into, remember they sent a whole task force to follow up in Indiana for that Batmobile thing?
yeah, in San Mateo County. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll give you just the brief summary on that. Pretty bizarre, though. I do want to mention that in the second hour, a special guest, and I just saw this episode of Frontline last night, and it has to do with the Federal Reserve. You couldn't find a more apropos kind of the moment documentary than the one that's on Frontline. Easy
I'm gonna
Money,
ding
it's
you
called.
for apropos. I'm dinging you for
Apropos, most certainly a ding word. You're absolutely right.
that. What's it called?
It's called Easy Money. And it goes back over what's happened with quantitative easing when they move more money into the economy, with interest rates, with the stock market, the relationship between the market and the Fed, but also, and it sounds dry at all, but our audience is pretty sophisticated. I mean, it likely won't sound dry to you, but it's not dry at all, because we've been talking about these things first on KGO and then here on this platform since they've been going on. We talked about the fact that the market was screaming ahead with easy money. I mean, it really was easy money. Remember, the Fed was essentially throwing money into the system at close to zero. That is to say, you were paying almost nothing for that money, the banks. Then they were loaning that money, and corporations as well. They were loaning that money, the banks were, and making that easy money because they're paying nothing for the money. So almost anywhere else they invest the money will likely make money. Anyway, point is that this documentary takes you through the entire process by which corporations, you'll remember, were essentially gifted all this money. And because the thinking was keeping interest rates low, they will hire people on, that whole thing. They'll build their infrastructure. They'll increase their footprint in terms of their business. And of course, none of that happened. It's corporate buybacks, right? We talked about this ad nauseum on KGO. They ran their stock up, which is really what they're supposed to do. I mean, that's what businesses are supposed to. They are evaluated essentially on the stock price. So what's the quickest way to run the stock price to a level that is respectable? Buy the stock back. And that's what they did. And CEOs were rewarded for it, and you had this incredible fast money that went into the corporate coffers. But meanwhile, you weren't really building any more of a business. You were just playing the system. So that's reviewed in the documentary as well. But when you talk about the Federal Reserve, now they're front and center because of SVB and the banking failures and their questions about the banking system. So the reporter, correspondent, writer, producer, James Jacoby is his name, from Frontline, he will be here in the 11 o'clock hour. So all of that's still to come. Thank you for being here. And we are a crowd-funded show. I'll remind you, anything you can throw us through Patreon or PayPal, those are our main sustaining streams of revenue, but also through super stickers and super chats. That's really great as well. So I mentioned Rothman. I mentioned a Frontline correspondent and producer. I mentioned Tony. Albert's away. What else, Kim, do I need to mention? I mentioned Law and Disorder.
How about the wind from yesterday?
Thank you. I want to get to some weather. So there are major power outages around the Bay Area. There were 250,000 customers from PG&E without power yesterday. What's the situation now? What can you tell us about the scene?
What can you tell us about the scene?
Well, we know the wind has died down, and I think the worst of it's gone, but let me show you some pictures. We got this great email from Jim, and he lives in Morgan Hill. And Jim was saying he's never seen anything like this.
Wow. That's
there's never been anything like this.
Man, that's really.
Yeah, he was saying that the wind was so strong that it uprooted a tree right in front of his old trailer, he said. And he sent us some pictures of it. Here is this tree that came smashing down. Looks like a narrow miss.
Wow.
Yeah. So he said his whole house was shaking down to the core.
Wow.
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I mean, I think the kind of damage we're seeing really is, I mean, on a wholesale level, is fairly substantial. I mean, my God.
Yesterday, they had to shut down the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge in one direction because of overturned big rigs. So they couldn't right these big rigs that blew down in the high winds until the winds died down. So it was closed for a few hours till the winds died down and they could flip these trucks back up and roll them away.
Man, how would you like to be on the flipping the trucks back up detail? That's a tough one, man. I mean, it's,
Pass.
I mean, that's right. That's really not a...
We've never seen anything like it before.
I hope that this entire situation begins to improve. Now Spencer said that it should improve. He was making a point.
It already has. Yeah. I don't know. Did you see the news story last night about the man who was really worried that this tree was going to come down, and it came down during the live broadcast?
Yes, in Redwood City. Yeah.
I have it. Are we allowed to show it?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for it.
I have never heard of something like that.
Yeah. We'll show it, and we'll see. You'll get a sense.
Crazy. Let me see if I can add it to
this. This has happened while they're interviewing this guy. Check this out on YouTube.
I mean, wow. Here's the story.
So you can't hear him right now.
There it goes. Oh my God.
All right. Start it again if you can.
Anyway, there goes my neighbor's house.
Anyway, wow. Thankfully, no one was inside that home. That person we spoke with told us his neighbor will probably need a new place to stay for a while, and he does have some extra rooms for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story. You got the point. So.
I got the point, but I wanted to see the actual moment again. Is there a way to go back? Maybe not.
No. I can try. Well, thanks to KPEX for that story.
Yeah, but I just, I'm always amazed when stuff's happening
Right? I mean, what timing? What absolute timing?
It was pretty wild, yeah.
How would you handle this?
Yeah.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
They didn't ignore it. They kind of focused on it. You can join us on YouTube every day live from 10 to noon here. There is every manner of issue related to weather in California right now. One of the issues beyond the wind, although the wind was a big story for, as Kim says, the toppling of trucks, toppling of trees, but those trees hit power lines and so many people were without power for a long time. The power restoration has continued through the night.
Yeah, PG&E is working. They say not everyone has power back, but they're hoping, they're working as fast as they can, and they have different times of estimated lights being back on for different communities. Did you see also that glass panes were falling from a high rise in San Francisco?
This is incredible. Do you have that video?
I think I do. Let me see if I can show it to you.
Now there is no video of the actual pane falling,
no.
But there were reports right after. I know I pushed you one of them. In the financial district of San Francisco, there was a shelter-in-place order. Whenever you see shelter-in-place order here in the United States of guns, you always think, oh, my God, there's a shooter in the financial district. No, this is because a huge pane of glass was blown out of one of the high-rises in the financial district, and it went tumbling down to the street and shattered. And people didn't know what was going on, and so they issued the shelter-in-place order. Here's a report, a little bit of it. Again, you have to unmute it.
Yeah.
3 stories above. San Francisco Fire Department says the wind
by the way,
was
that's
definitely
43 stories
when
is
that
what she
window
was saying.
came crashing down in
43
the financial
stories
district
above
from the old
street.
Bank of America building at 555 California. Amazingly, no one was hit by that glass. Now, this location is still risky. Traffic is being diverted. Crews are trying to figure out if there are other windows could be at risk of coming down. NBC Barry Sergio Quintana joins us live right next to that tower. And Sergio, it is miraculous that no one got hit by that pane of glass because that's a busy area normally.
Yeah. No one's seen anything like it.
It was pretty busy today, even despite the winds. And I can show you it's kind of odd because, it's 6 o'clock and right here downtown. This is usually teeming with a lot of traffic. You can see police officers have the entire block around 555 California blocked off. I want to give you
There is nothing in our history that quite compares to this.
I'm going to say this. Now, he's going to show you that's 43. That's what that looks like. And then he zooms in, and you'll see it. Right now, it's all blown out by the backlight, but look at this.
In the wind. I was able to talk with the man who was over in the plaza in front of
this
tower when this all happened.
Screen?
He says it was very, very windy at the time.
It was very, very windy time. No kidding.
I have never heard of something like that.
And then you heard the pain, like everybody was looking up to see what it was, and something came down and just shattered right in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah.
It's personal belief reason.
Yeah. All right. So that was what happened.
I mean, video that was shared by the San Francisco Fire Department. You can see a piece of that window fall to the street below, landing just feet from someone running through the crosswalk.
Kim, that is amazing that no one was hit by that. I mean,
really
it's a pretty heavily trafficked area. I think we're helped a bit by the fact that the weather was a little funky, so maybe the streets weren't as full as they would have been. But anyway, that happened. And the other thing that struck me about that story, and then we'll move on, is that they hadn't accounted for wind on the 43rd story of a financial district building in San Francisco, where we have wind that is consistently pretty gusty and high in terms of velocity.
And I think it was in the South Bay, up on Mount Umunum. They had wind clocked at 97 miles an hour yesterday.
Sure. And when you go up in elevation like that, which this just in 43 stories above the street is up in elevation, you're going to get those kinds of winds. I'm really surprised that the wind produced, that kind of damage. It actually blew out a pane of glass. So, I was just astounded by that.
What?
Yeah, exactly. I've never heard of anything.
I have never heard of something like that.
Right. Okay. Smash the like button like a boss. You know how to do it. Come on now. It costs you nothing. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I don't need to tell you the other thing that's going on. I will get to law and disorder and some other things. But I did want to let you know that tomorrow is the official start of Mark's Madness!
Mark's Madness!
Come on, everybody, get excited! This is where one drop plays off against another drop. That's right. Joe Box won yesterday in the play-in tournament round.
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah, and Shirley won, didn't she? I think Shirley got in.
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
Yeah, they both got in, but now you have to fill out your bracket, and we start tomorrow. Don't be left behind. I would say this, Kim. It would be helpful if we could maybe bring up for a second Albert's explainer video. He did an explainer video, and it's on YouTube under our channel. And it explains where to find the login, where to find the brackets, how to log into both. And if you find that, let's play a little bit of it. This is Albert, and you'll see
down to the description, which is right here, and you'll click on this link, officepoolstop.com. Okay, and here also is some important information: the ID. This set of numbers 29877 and this password iron rod, all lowercase and no space in between. Okay, so I'll revisit that shortly. So you're going to click on this link, then it'll go to this website that we've been using the past few years. I spent days and hours trying to make my own bracket, try to use different platforms, and all of them unfortunately could not do the capabilities that this one could do.
There you see the brackets,
the ads. So stay strong, everyone. Just ignore the ads. I'm sure you could get an ad blocker to remove them. I am using Google Chrome. I know some web browsers were having some issues with Office Pool Stop. Just try to use Google Chrome since I'm using it. That also includes on mobile. If you're doing this on mobile, the ads might be spamming and might be getting in the way of you clicking on the button. So I suggest not using mobile. And if you do use mobile, maybe try to use a different browser. All right, so you click the link. And here you join. If you are not a league member, you could join here. So you need to join the league first. So click the link here. And I'm already logged in.
This is the key.
But
this is the key.
You need to join the league. You need to sign in and make an account. So after you make an account, you could go back to this YouTube video and click on the link, and it'll automatically send you to the league.
Okay, so stop there, Kim, if you would, please. So,
okay, Albert, thank you.
This is the point. You make an account if you've never played before. If you've played before, you're fine. You make an account, and then you log in with that information that is right there on the video, the ID, and the password, iron rod, all lowercase. And then you fill out your bracket. The bracket is there now. It'll be there all day. And you'll have until tomorrow when the show starts to do your bracket. So if you have any questions, you can email us, and I'll try to push them on to the commissioner, themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. But if you've already played, if you played one of the last few years, you can join and it will remember you. So you already have an account. So you only need the ID and the password, and you'll get right in. There are some pretty good matchups, and we can discuss them a little bit later. But, you know, right out of the chute, that Shirley that you heard, you know, the...
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
So she goes up in the first round, Kim, against a fan favorite, which is...
Where are my weed smokers at?
Oh.
How do you pick a winner there? Shirley versus weed smokers. That's a first round showdown. There are a lot of tough ones. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get to more later, but
I think I stick with Shirley. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? Shirley's strong.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's a tough one because Where Are My Weed Smokers? That went deep in prior years. Right. It's a favorite. It's like a Duke basketball favorite. So I think between the two, I might go Where Are My Weed Smokers? But Shirley could be the Cinderella story, you know? I mean...
Yes, I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on your show.
I will see.
Yeah, Shirley.
I don't know. Anyway, I've got Moskowitz waiting, so I'll get to him. But we will revisit this with more, and you can push us your questions in the chat or questions via email, and we start tomorrow. So hopefully you can navigate all that. Again, there's a special video explainer that Albert did. It's in videos in our channel, so it's there to help you out. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
Put it together for the ninja of taxes, who is with us now. I think he's with us now. Steve Moskowitz, is he or not?
Yes, he is.
Ah, there you go. Hey, Steve.
Live and in person.
Live and in person. So, I liked that yesterday you talked about not being able to pay your tax bill. You know what I mean? That people panic, they don't pay it, they ignore it, penalties are assessed. It's a pretty brutal scene, not to mention the anxiety. I mean, it literally does keep you up at night.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why back when we were on Station X, I used to run things in the middle of the night, and people would say, as they were laying in bed staring at the ceiling, they would hear it.
Wow.
And, there's so much help we have for people. And I'd like to say we really care about our clients. And along that line, I'm always talking about with ERC, the easy way and the hard way. And I've gotten used to, spending so much time with clients trying to see if they determine it. Yesterday, I took a case the easy way, and I was, that's it? Like, I looked at the guy's number. Yeah, that's it. You call. It was like, I had all this time set aside for you to go over things, and that's it. It's like, Mark, I need you to solve this mathematical problem. I haven't asked you to solve for the exact amount of pi in honor of Pi Day yesterday.
Right.
But how much is 1 + 1?
Yeah.
2, and that's it. You're done. It was so easy. And I was thinking, I can see if you have some firm that doesn't care about the clients and only cares about maximizing their own profits, how seductive that is. Because if you lined up a whole bunch of those all day, it was so quick. Yes, your numbers went down by the appropriate percentage. Whereas, I'm spending so much time with these clients, oftentimes multiple visits will get me some homework. Well, that's part of what I needed to go get me some more homework to see if they qualify. When they don't qualify the easy way, then I'm thinking, my God, I see how seductive it can be for firms just doing that. I understand why they're doing it, just they're terribly harming clients.
Sure. I mean, I think ERC boils down to not realizing you're eligible is one category of
or worse
people.
Yet, being told you're not by your CPA when you're not eligible the easy way, the drop in gross revenue. But if you put some effort and time and work into it, a lot of these clients are eligible on the other one. And if you don't claim the money when it's over, and you just lose out, and that's it. Goodbye forever.
And again, when that program expires, it's done.
Exactly.
Reach Steve at 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. There really might be something of a pot of gold for you. But even if you just need some help this year, he's the guy to talk to. And we've talked about expanding businesses and HR help as well. Steve can really be your counsel on all these things. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can reach him online, MoskowitzLLP.com. I sent you a message, so get back to me, Steve Moskowitz. I wanted to, I know you're busy, but I
actually did just before I called in.
Okay, cool. Okay, good deal. Love you here, man. Thank you. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. Bye-bye, Steve.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think Who's Mark Thompson is one of the drops as well that's in there, isn't it? Which one of you is Mark Thompson is in there? In fact, in the first round of Mark's Madness, which one of you is Mark Thompson goes up against Joe Box? Again, these are tough. Here's one for you that's tough. Which would you favor here between the Fauci...
That's not fake. That's real.
...and the Toobin apology? The Toobin apology is...
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Okay, so do you like that, or do you like that's not fake, that's real? See, that's a... Yeah.
I'm going to go Toobin apology, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Toobin apology wins that.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one that's tough. In the first round, you've got Good Day, Sir.
Good day,
sir.
Going up against the Larry King drop, the scene drop.
What can you tell us about the scene?
Yeah.
Oh, I really like What Can You Tell Us About the Scene?
I think What Can You Tell Us About the Scene wins that.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It'll go up against...
Good day, sir.
Yeah. So you have to pick the winner. Again, just pick the one that you think will win. Now, if you're saying, oh, I don't know, the bracket's too much trouble, whatever, try, first of all, I would say watch that explainer video from Albert. But I would also say you can still participate. It's free, right? That's it's open to everybody. And you can vote in YouTube. We'll have the various voting polls up, and you can vote in the chat as well. I'm just looking at...
have a little fun, right?
Yes, exactly. Here is a tough one. Last thing I can just... light inside the body.
Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
Yeah, that's going up against Grady. Oh.
What he's got going here is a situation.
How do you pick between those two? Light inside the body.
Supposing you brought the light inside the body.
And Grady.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I think Grady beats Trump.
Yeah, I do.
I think Grady beats Trump. That's the way I would go.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really tough one.
Uh-oh.
What do you do with this?
Why are you yelling?
Against this?
Morning.
Oh, that is very rough.
Yeah, that's a real tough one. Why are you yelling versus morning?
Why are you yelling?
Versus
morning.
And I also like the fact that they, from a vibe standpoint, are so different.
Yeah.
One's so happy and the other's so annoyed, you know.
I have to say, why are you yelling? If only because we use it often to calm you down.
Yes. How dare you? Not to calm me down.
Yeah. Yes,
No.
Mark Thompson, to calm you.
No, it's not to me.
I'm going to, because it's usefulness, pick the why are you yelling? Yeah.
I think why are you yelling does make it past the first round. I agree.
Yeah.
In a second, I'll give you a guaranteed winner, all of you who are participating in Mark's Madness. But I want to, here's a tough one too. This is a favorite, and yet, let me see if I have it. Okay. How about this?
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Now, that used to be a real favorite.
Sure.
And we used to play it an awful lot. It's going up against...
Seriously, what the
Oh.
Seriously, what the... is pretty strong.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Which one would you vote?
Seriously, what the
What do
It's
you
one of
think?
the only times I'm going to pick Trump to win.
And now I'll give you the winner. This will be, I mean, the winner in this, I'm going to give you one winner. I think it's going to be, it's a lead pipe cinch to win.
Okay.
All right. So tomorrow, when Mark's Madness starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and people have filled out their brackets, you can take it all the way up to the last second to fill it out. But once we start, it'll be too late. But I believe in the first round, this drop, the processes drop.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
I think that's going to lose. So I think the winner will be this drop, which is...
My bad. I'm sorry.
Right?
Oh, yeah. My bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
My bad. I'm sorry. That's my gift to you.
I find
I
myself
promise
using
you
that in
it will win.
common speech
Yes.
in everyday life. Like,
Right.
no one knows what it means, where it's from, but I'm like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah.
My bad. I'm sorry.
I find myself using processes, protocols, and standards in common
We have
speech.
processes and protocols and standards.
Just different kinds of common speech, I guess, between the two of us.
Yeah.
John Rothman joins us. We'll talk politics, Fed policy, and all the rest. We will get into all things. Nothing's off limits with John Rothman. Smash the like button like a boss. Mark Thompson Show.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My picture. There she is. I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. We showed you some pictures of trees coming down in the wind. And yeah, it's just been one of those very rough afternoons yesterday. Looks like the winds have died down. You know what's not dying down? I'll tell you what, it's the controversy swirling around Silicon Valley Bank. And it has been an ugly day on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped by more than 650 points at certain times today, while another major average was sharply lower as well. This comes as investors worry about the strength of the banking sector, as the focus is now Swiss bank Credit Suisse, because it could be the third bank to be in trouble in less than a week.
I'll remind everybody just here at this moment, Kim, just because you mentioned this, when it comes to Fed policy and a discussion about Fed policy and money supply and kind of what's driving some of what we're seeing now, the correspondent, producer, and writer of the latest Frontline documentary, which is all about just those things, will join us in the 11 o'clock hour. So just want to mention it again because I think I saw it last night, and it's a terrific documentary on just these issues that are related to SVB and the other banks, Credit Suisse, et cetera.
So let's move on to the drone situation. This happened yesterday. A drone may never be recovered after it was intercepted by 2 Russian jets over the Black Sea. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby telling CNN it fell into very deep water. Russia denies its aircraft collided with the drone, arguing the U.S. aircraft made a sharp maneuver and crashed into the water. Yeah, it's not what they say happened. We'll see how that works out. Senators are hearing testimony on public safety and gun regulations. This is happening at these, it's focused on the Supreme Court's ruling that a New York law requiring people to have a special reason to conceal carry a pistol is unconstitutional. Ruth Glenn from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence said the loosening of gun laws creates another barrier to safety for domestic violence victims. Democrats boycotting a congressional hearing at the U.S.-Mexico border today. The House Homeland Security Committee holding this hearing in Pharr, Texas. They're examining what Republicans say is an immigrant crisis at the border. Democrats claim Republicans are only trying to score political points, holding the hearings outside of Washington, D.C. And it looks like home builder sentiment is on the rise yet again. There are still signs of caution, though. The National Association of Home Builders, Wells Fargo Housing Market Index went up by 2 points this month to 44. The number has to be above 50, though, to be considered positive. Well, at least it's not the Bay Area. It's New York City that has the most traffic congestion in the United States. Congratulations. A new study found New Yorkers spend the equivalent of 10 full days in rush hour traffic a year. Whoa. According to the TomTom Index, which covers traffic in 390 cities across 56 countries on 6 continents, motorists spend 236 hours in traffic during rush hour annually. It's at an average speed of 12 miles per hour. Yeah. That's a total time suck. And
tell somebody waiting to get on the Bay Bridge that the Bay Area isn't number one. I mean, you know what I mean? It's always like where you sit. Right.
We're number one.
Right. I'm sure Delhi is worse, but I mean, you know, but still, it sure feels
New York
like
City. It's New York
City. I know,
City.
I'm just saying, right. But what's number 2?
They don't tell you. You always ask the tough questions, the probing questions.
That's what they pay me for, Kim. The tough questions.
You think I have the entire article in front of me? I think not.
Mark, I grabbed the headline. What do you want from me? Right.
This report sponsored by me. This is the Mark Thompson Show, not the Kim McAllister News Hour.
Come on.
That's a different YouTube channel, okay? Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
This report sponsored by tax attorney
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
Right.
Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve Moskowitz is the one to call. He is at 888-TAX-DEAL, and he's at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for coup d'etat.
I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Use Mark Thompson.
It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
What up, everybody? It is our big Wednesday show. Smash that like button like it's going to be the last thing you do. Tomorrow starts Mark's Madness. If you want to see the explainer video, as I was saying, we have it up there on YouTube. Albert walks you through the ways that you get an account and then how you fill out the Mark's Madness bracket. It's pretty straightforward, although I know it can be a little janky, and I tried to myself do it on a second computer, and it was difficult because it recognized my old computer, etc. So once you've logged in, then you can get to it. But you use Albert's explainer video as a way to sort of keep you on course, and I think you'll find it right there, as I say, on our channel. I'll mention again the 11 o'clock hour, the producer, writer, correspondent on Frontline. Their latest documentary is all about the Fed and about money and the money supply. As the Fed tries to control inflation, as you know, they tend to raise the prime rate, and that has its own problems. Now it's sending, because they've done this dance so aggressively, a kind of jittery marketplace to the consumer, to the point that people are losing faith on some level in the banking system. We've seen our own casualties here in the Bay Area with SVB and is it First Republic? So to talk about that and more, anyway, we'll talk about the documentary with that lead correspondent and producer. But to talk about that and more, here he is, the former KGO pundit, talk show host, sexiest man alive, John Rothman, everybody. John, it's great seeing you always.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. So we've got a lot to talk about, and I want to start with the Fed because it's so weird that so much has happened since our last conversation.
Yes.
Because we were talking about all the different things that were affecting the economy and inflation and all the rest, and you were identifying Fed policy as something that, was critical to all of this in the economy. And you were sort of speaking in a confident way about what the Fed was doing. And I'm not saying you're even wrong about this. I'm just saying that now that you have these ripple effects from Fed policy, I'm talking about raising interest rates, and then we know what happened. These huge quantities of money were parked in long-term T-bills, which no longer maintain that asset value. And that's what really sunk SVB, in addition to the run. I mean, let's be honest, John, there was more going on at SVB than just the asset value, right? It was a run on that bank that was probably tech bro VC prompted. But I'm wondering how you see Fed policy now, and as you look at the American economic system and how jittery everything is, the banking system, what your posture is toward everything going on.
I have faith in the economy. I have to, because if the economy goes belly up, so do we all. And I know people who are deeply affected by this tragedy in the bank in Silicon Valley. And of course, Swiss Bank, we're listening to today. The big bank here that's affected is First Republic, but they seem to be okay because everything's being covered. And I think that's the key. The Federal Reserve, whatever you think of the Federal Reserve, is now covering these losses. And I think that is what is critical. It shows the value of the Fed. That there cannot be, at least the Fed says there cannot be, the kind of run that there was in 2008, that there are too many protections now. And may I say, as one who does have investments and who does follow this carefully, this is a critical place for America and the world. Remember, what happens to us has ripple effects across the planet, as we're seeing this morning. So we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Does it trouble you, John, though, that we've seen so much in the way of regulations, protections? I'm glad you used that word. Protections. We've seen so much of it rolled back. It even predated the Trump administration. The Glass-Steagall, the Trump rollbacks on basic protections when it comes to banks. Banks have been deregulated now after the re-regulation following the 2008 crash. They've been re-regulated and now deregulated. They've unwound a lot of those regulations. Does that disturb you?
Yes. Banks should do banking. Stocks should be a separate issue altogether. The whole question of mortgages and real estate, that's what I really worry about, is if there were a real collapse in the real estate market, we would be up the creek without a paddle. So these are all issues which the presidential campaign, a year away, essentially, are going to have to deal with. And we are going to have to deal with it every day in terms of what we do. My real advice is, if you are not personally affected at this point, don't panic. Hold on to what you've got. Sit tight, because things bounce around. Look at where First Republic went 2 days ago, then where it went yesterday, and look where it is today. So you just never know. The one thing I know I can count on is the Mark madness. And it seems to me, Mark, that this madness is being generated by you.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to Albert last night, and I said, well, because we're going to send the brackets to various people like Spencer Christian, and Dan Ashley is going to get one, you know, and we're sending them to Brett Burkhart's going to get one, these kinds of people, you know, who we know in the Bay Area from media, et cetera. And I said, we should send one to John Rothman. I don't know whether he's going to get into it, or he doesn't have to get into it, but whether he'll fill it out or whatever. And so we are sending you one, and you just have to indicate by hand. We're sending you a PDF, and you can play it like anybody else. You don't need to know anything. So that's the, you know, like, you don't need to have.
I've been in this business long enough to know I don't need to know anything. Thank you very much.
But I mean, you don't have any granular knowledge of the show. You yourself can be part of the madness, I guess is my point. All right, well, it's against the backdrop of a jittery economy then, John, that we have conversations about other things concerning politics. I know you gravitate toward politics both locally and also nationally. I'm wondering what stands out to you in the latest week since we spoke last.
Mike Pence, his talk at the Gridiron dinner, which is normally confidential, by the way, was very clear. He is separating himself from Donald Trump. He is saying history will judge Donald Trump, but I would point out to you, we are going to be judging him ourselves. Let me point out that the odds are that Donald Trump will be indicted, either by one grand jury or another. And the question has been asked of me by a number of people, is it possible to indict a former president? The answer is yes. Richard Nixon accepted a pardon in 1974 in order to avoid indictment, certain indictment, and conviction. Bill Clinton, 2 days before he left the presidency, agreed to admit that he'd obstructed justice and had committed perjury in order to avoid certain indictment the minute he left office. We have a precedent in terms of our executive branch. Aaron Burr was indicted for treason. Now, this goes back to 1805, 1806, but John Marshall, the Chief Justice, presided, and Burr was found not guilty. And of course, Spiro Agnew, who said he would not resign if he were indicted. And it didn't come to that because there was a plea deal. He pled nolo contendere, and so he avoided indictment, although he had to admit his guilt. My suggestion to you is, in the next few weeks, we are going to see increasing assurances of Donald Trump's indictment on a variety of charges. One other quick point. The book I recommend to everybody to read these days is the January 6th report. You don't have to read the whole 800 pages. You can just read the summary, which is about 180 pages. You can read it. You'll understand that what happened on January 6th was absolutely seditious. And there's no doubt about his guilt. The question is whether the political forces in the Justice Department, and I say that advisedly, political forces in the Justice Department are willing to pursue it.
Well,
that's
so
it. The other big story, of course, is the downing of the drone and the conflict now between the United States and Russia over this question, with increasing tensions and escalation. And one other quick point I would just throw in: Ron DeSantis, I think, had his George Romney moment. Remember when George Romney talked about being brainwashed in Vietnam back in 1967? Well, Ron DeSantis yesterday essentially kissed off Ukraine and the struggle for freedom there. And I think it has done him incalculable damage. We have now, I believe, more than a dozen Republican senators who are saying they don't agree with DeSantis. That is not good news for him. On the other hand, it would appear that no one is holding Donald Trump accountable for anything in the Republican Party. So who knows what that will all mean.
Well, Trump lines up with DeSantis in that way, doesn't he? Where is he on Ukraine? I thought he is also kind of stepping back from support of Ukraine.
No, what he has said is even more interesting to me. If I were president, said Donald Trump,
this wouldn't have happened, right?
We would not be doing all of this. And if you put me back in the White House, it'll all be okay. That is his line. I don't believe it's true, and I don't think people are going to buy it. but it means that within the Republican Party now, there really are the wings being formed, and one of those critical battlegrounds will be Ukraine. People like Lindsey Graham and others who are the leaders of the Republican Party in the Senate are being very clear about that. One other quick thing was Mitch McConnell's fall. He is now evidently not doing very well. He is in the hospital. There is real concern because the Senate is so narrowly divided. And Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republican Party. If he can't function, what do the Republicans do? And if there is a vacancy, what happens there? I mean, there's so many variables in the days ahead. It's really quite remarkable. And Joe Biden has a big problem. We shouldn't ignore that. His approval for drilling in Alaska has infuriated the environmentalists who have backed him 100%. I frankly don't understand the logic of Joe Biden on that, because that's part of his base constituency. And the idea of drilling in pristine areas of Alaska, if Donald Trump had done it, the whole world would have been up in arms. And so this is another thing that Joe Biden is going to have to wrestle with.
I'm glad you mentioned this, John. Can we just stop on this for a moment? Because the reality is that this was I think you correctly identify it as a super controversial decision to okay this Conoco project in Alaska. And it's also something that runs against his brand, Biden's brand, which is sort of the forward-thinking, environmental, green-oriented presidency, even as we understand that he is, having to take care of the fossil fuel industry. But what I'm seeing now, and because I came in up very heavily against it on this show, and I did a couple of different little rants about it, because it really does make my blood boil. Obviously, politically, and this is what is such a strength of yours, he needs to take care of Alaska, right? Murkowski was after this for a long time. There are a lot of lobbies around both employment in Alaska and money coming into Alaska, and the fossil fuel lobby, of course, is immense. So he had all of that pressure. But here's the additional element that I didn't mention the last couple of days. This did start under Trump. There was a provisional contract actually issued for this project, and it was done, apparently, the calculation, both politically and legally within the Biden administration. They sort of did the legal arithmetic and saw that, wow, if we essentially invalidate or back away or don't allow this project to continue, we could be in court for a long time. It'll cost taxpayers a bunch of money, and they may end up with a bigger footprint from a drilling standpoint than they started with, than was originally approved. Now, before I let you speak, and I'm sorry to run on, I want to say, so what? Go to court and take them on. Are you a green president and a green administration or not? So that's where I am on this thing. And I see now John Rothman, now I may have lost my connection to John, but the fact is that isn't incidental information. It's important information. I believe it went into the calculations around it. And Deb Haaland, who's the Interior Secretary, I have a lot of respect for her because she is a Native American, and I think Native Americans have such a great stake in what's going on native lands and in lands of this country and lands that they occupied originally, right? She wouldn't even have her name on the approval of this project. So we know that within his administration, the Biden administration, there was pushback on this project. And it went forward for some of the reasons that I've identified. Kim, I know you actually pushed me some of the interesting details around this that did sort of mitigate a lot of the original angry pushback that I had offered on this show on Monday.
Well, it makes you understand why the Biden administration felt cornered. Like, if we fight them, it's going to cost billions of dollars. They're going to win anyway, and they're going to drill anyway, right? So at least if we do it this way, we'll be able to constrain the amount of drilling, put some more regulations on it, slap some more environmental stuff that they have to adhere to on it, and we'll save the taxpayers a bunch of money in a case that we weren't going to win because ConocoPhillips already held these leases.
Right.
So I understand why they're doing it. it just doesn't feel very good to me.
Yeah. And so what I say is BS. You fight them in court. If you stand on your principles, stand on them, make them go to court. Because as I told you yesterday, the industry, ConocoPhillips, is now walking around going, we don't like these environmental regulations either on the way that we're going to drill. And they're not quietly going away and, counting their money. No, they're walking in like a bunch of fat cats and saying no. And we don't like those environmental regulations either. So I say take them on in court. This idea somehow, well, it's going to cost the taxpayers money. Please. All of a sudden you care about the taxpayers' money? It's the best spending of my money you can do to prevent oil drilling in pristine Alaskan land. And the last thing I'll say, and I've said it before, and you've got to know it, is don't spoon feed me the BS about how this oil will help reduce the price of gasoline in America and make us more domestically independent. We are domestically independent.
Yeah.
It will go on to the spot market worldwide. That's where that oil is going. And will the American taxpayer, this taxpayer that you care so much about, will they receive any benefits? No. ConocoPhillips will receive benefits. Private industry will receive benefits. And they'll get the benefits of our tax breaks too. It's outrageous. I would take them to court. But I do appreciate the details associated with this problematic environmental issue that the Biden administration had to deal with. And I think it's a fair position that Kim is mentioning, which is, hey, we were worried that if they took us to court, it would take a long time and we might end up losing, and they'd have an even bigger footprint than they had for oil drilling than they were going to have originally.
Yeah.
So
somehow we lost John Rothman, so I don't know what happened with that.
I'm worried about a power. It's possible there could have been a power outage where he is.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just finally,
I went on too long.
He was like, listen, if he's going to go on and on, I don't even know why I'm here. I'm out.
Hey, I could say that about him. He goes on and on. I love when he goes on and on. That's the best part about Rothman, is that he goes on and on.
Why are you yelling?
Yeah.
So why can't I go on and on once in a while?
Why are you yelling?
All right. Thank you, John Rothman. I'm sorry that we lost you.
It was great. I loved it.
I don't know
We always love
why.
to have John Rothman on the show. It's fun.
We do love John Rothman.
Yeah.
So smash the like button for John Rothman.
Smash it with your iron rod.
If we get enough likes, we can bring John Rothman back. Please, everyone. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it
right
with
now.
your iron rod.
Let's bring John Rothman back.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
All right. Well, I'm saddened that we've lost John Rothman, but it's a good. He's watching Fox News, says Spencer. Chris says you can't make steel with solar panels and wind power.
Yeah, that's a non
I
sequitur.
don't know
Sorry
what
about that.
means, Chris, but I mean, if you're saying that we need to have domestic fossil fuel development, you don't think we have enough of it? You don't think we frack enough? You don't think we so, I mean, if you're suggesting that pontificating is a ding word, that is true.
Yeah.
If you're suggesting that we should have the domestic steel industry, you can try to rebuild the domestic steel industry. As you know, a lot of the domestic steel industry is overseas. I don't know, like I try to take comments and try to dignify them with an answer, but I mean, even the tariffs associated with Chinese steel, those tariffs weren't enough to keep, in some way, reinvigorate the American steel industry. Sadly, I mean, we're a global economy now. So we're going to get off fossil fuels someday. If we're forced to do it, it will be a lot more expensive than if we do it willingly. Okay. We're not forced to do it, Eric. I mean, you need a strategy of getting off of fossil fuels. So what's the plan for someday getting off of them? I mean, how do you envision it? When you say we'll get off them someday, what do you mean? When we run out of them? We'll never run out of them. Okay. There are always new ways. Fracking was the big technological breakthrough in terms of energy, right? That you could somehow break apart chemically the oil and energy that was under the ground. It used to be, as you know, you stick a pipe in the ground and you pump out oil. That's not what fracking is anymore. There's a limitless amount of energy in some way. I would say limitless. You're going to run out of a lot of other stuff before you run out of oil, or energy might be another way to put it. So I don't know what that means. We're going to run out of it. That is with all respect, I just think it's I need to know more, to be fair to you. So, we want John back, but I don't know what happened to him. So, what can I tell you? I do have an update, and I want to update a couple of cases in Law and Disorder. I also want to update the, I have Trump and Oprah Winfrey news. Can I give you that now, or do you want to wait?
I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty unreal. I mean, Trump is trumping along.
There's never been anything like this.
And one of the things he's doing is he's talking about these various letters that he received. I guess he's come out with a new book. Is that what Trump has done? And
yes.
In the new book,
yes,
he is. Let me put my credibility glasses on, and I can tell you.
In the advertisement for the new book, he's coming out and saying all of these people, and we're talking like Queen Elizabeth and former presidents and Princess Diana. He said they all kissed my ass.
Right. That's exactly it. They all kissed my ass.
He's so vulgar.
Well, I mean, if you're going to say it, you got to say it.
What?
You know. His son, Don Jr., don't you miss the rogues gallery that was the Trump administration? Don Jr., you had Eric, you had, there he is, Rothman's back. You had Kushner, you had Ivanka, you had Bill Barr, you had Sean Hannity. They were all part of the Trump administration. Don't you miss that, John? Don't you miss those guys? Come on.
I apologize. We had a computer failure, so I had to shift computers. I apologize for that.
No problem.
You're asking about the right-wing talk show hosts who are culpable on so many levels for the disaster which we confront. And the answer is there's no accountability. It goes to show you the question of cable and the question of accountability versus when we had regulated networks. And that's a whole other issue. But I'm sorry I was going.
Don't you miss that administration, though, John, with lobbyists who had sued the EPA, actually running the EPA? Don't you miss those interior secretaries that were convicted, or I should say they were you're alleged to have been involved in serious corruption to the point that they had to resign? I think they went to two of them, through two of them.
You're right.
Wilbur 100%. Ross, the Commerce Secretary, who never divested himself of all that money, even though he said he did, of all those holdings. Yeah.
And there's no accountability. But let me point out to you, that had to do with, unfortunate Republicans in control of Congress.
And there may not be accountability for much of anything. It's interesting. You talked earlier, John Rothman, you had kind of led with when we were talking about accountability, that there are charges likely being brought against Donald Trump. You do think that there'll be an indictment issued. I wonder if you think that a conviction is possible, and what might happen. And
well, the point is, I want him in court, I want him convicted, and then I would expect the president to grant clemency. Clemency is not a pardon; it simply means the president wouldn't go to jail. That would be my prediction, and that would be a courtesy extended to any former president of the United States.
He would still be eligible to become president of the United States, would he not?
No, not if he's convicted. Not if he's convicted.
Was it a felony? It's a felony. He's being.
Yes, the indictment is a felony indictment.
Okay.
But frankly, Mark, although I hate to make my predictions because I've been wrong so often, that I don't see Trump being the nominee. But as I was saying, I think before we were disrupted there, DeSantis' statement about what's going on in Ukraine is a terrible blow to his candidacy. A lot of people are going to stop and think and say, wait a minute, is this a guy you want in the Oval Office? Richard Nixon once told me that 70% of a president's time is devoted to foreign policy. I think that's absolutely correct. And if you don't have somebody who has some capability, you've got a problem. We've got a problem, not you. We would have a problem.
I'll give John Rothman a ding for Richard Nixon told me once. I think that's pretty strong.
You really think that if the former President Trump was convicted, and Biden was in office, that Biden would pardon him so
No,
Trump wouldn't have to
Not
go to
pardon
prison?
him, give him clemency.
No, it's
Give him
clemency.
clemency? No. He
Clemency
has to go to
simply
jail.
means-
Like
No, okay,
jail, like full on jail with an orange jumpsuit and a big, ugly, nasty,
not
dirty
gonna happen.
toilet in a
Yeah.
little
You
cell.
are
with bad things
conveying
happening.
You are conveying your political biases, which are perfectly permissible.
Well, her bias is toward decency. It's not even political. It's, I mean, my God, it's toward the rule of law. The guy was
I don't think
I'm asked for my prediction. That is how Joe
Yes.
Biden finesses the problem.
I
He's
don't think you can
guilty.
do that when you have a former president. If he is convicted of charges of stirring up a riot or an insurrection against the United States government, to give that person clemency,
I don't
outrageous.
disagree. I don't disagree with you one bit. But I'm not being asked what I think. I'm being asked what I think about the possibility of a former president going to jail. Look, no former president deserved prison more than my old boss, Richard Nixon. Nobody. And yet there was a decision made. And let me remind you, Gerald Ford pardoned him. He had to admit his culpability, but Gerald Ford pardoned him. And I would remind you that Gerald Ford in I believe it was in 2001, received the Profiles in Courage Award from the John F. Kennedy Library because everybody understood that putting a former president in jail isn't the key. The key is that history has to be the judge. That's why what Mike Pence said at the Gridiron Dinner was so important.
Well,
He said history will judge.
Let's compare the crimes, because you had Nixon with Watergate. He stole some stuff, and yes, it was so he could, affect an election.
But he paid
right?
off, but it paid off cover-up money, and it was on tape of him actually.
Right. But then fast
engineering the
forward
payout.
to Trump, and he's trying to steal an election, create confusion and chaos so that he can sweep in and he can stay in power. Goes against every American principle.
Let me remind you that Richard Nixon and Bob Haldeman, in the June 23rd discussion, attempted to involve the FBI and the CIA in a cover-up.
Right.
Believe me, there is no more heinous crime that could have been committed in the Oval Office than that. And you're correct. It is analogous, and I want to say this very clearly. I just read the entire January 6th.
Yes, ding is
I
definitely
just read the entire January 6th report. I deserve a ding for that, I'm telling you. But people
you do. How many pages is that again? The January 6th
800
report?
pages.
800.
But people should understand that the January 6th report rather, is so devastating in terms of Donald Trump and his role. So it's apples and oranges. What Richard Nixon did was wrong. What Donald Trump did was wrong. They both had to pay a price. Nixon never went to jail, but and I don't think Trump will either. Clemency is not a pardon. Let's be clear on that.
John had this to say about the January 6th report. He said, I loved it, but changed the ending, is what he said, which was really kind of an odd take on. I'm going to ask you one thing kind of off point, but on point. You're a voracious reader, and I think you must read at a speed that I'm envious of. I'm a slow reader. It's hard for 800 pages. That could take me all year to read. So I'm in and out of books constantly. My question is, how quickly do you read?
Very quickly.
Yeah.
I have always had that ability. I remember I wrote a report when I was in junior high school on the rise and fall of the Confederate government by Jefferson Davis. It's a 2-volume massive tome, and I read the whole darn thing, and I wrote the book report. And the teacher called me in, Mrs. McDonald. She called me in, and she said, "You didn't really read this, did you?" I said, "Of course I did. Open to a page, ask me a question." That's exactly what she did. I answered the question, and I got my A.
Wow.
There's never been anything like this.
That is pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing, pal.
No, I was lucky that she opened to a page that I remembered.
He's a sexy fool. Joins us on Wednesdays. We're out of time. I love you, John. You're the greatest.
I'm sorry about the interruption.
Oh, don't worry, man. It's so much fun to talk to you.
Just remember, I worked for Richard Nixon. There was an 18-and-a-half-minute gap. I did not equal the 18-and-a-half-minute gap for you, but I apologize for that. And I look forward to next week, if not sooner.
Good stuff. John Rothman, everybody. Thanks, John. Have a good week, my friend. Yeah. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim's News, then we update a lot of things, actually. You know, the San Francisco judge made a big decision, and it's kind of been lost in all of this horrible weather and serious issues that we've had weather-related, flooding and power outages and all the rest. But there was a big decision in the city from a judge who essentially called out the government. And I'll have that in Law and Disorder. Also, the Batmobile caper. They've wrapped up an independent investigation. And it's a pretty big-time conclusion that judge came to. That's in Law and Disorder as well. And as I mentioned, that Norfolk Southern, their world is about to get a lot more complicated legally. All of that still to come. And still to come, the Frontline correspondent, producer, and writer James Jacoby. The latest Frontline documentary is all about the Fed, all about the money supply. It couldn't come at a better time. I saw it last night, and it's terrific. Smash the like button like a boss for John Rothman, for Frontline guests,
with your iron rod.
And Mark's madness continues as well. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Where's Kim's over-the-top news theme? Do we have it? I must have it. Thank you.
I don't know if I can go on without it anymore.
Yes. All right.
I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Speaking of that train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, God, that picture. Wow. So let's talk about it because the Senate's top Democrat is calling on federal regulators now to expand their investigation into Norfolk Southern to include other major railroads as well. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer urging the NTSB broaden its investigation to include all Class 1 freight rail companies following the toxic derailment seen here in the picture in East Palestine, Ohio. Schumer said the industry is in desperate need of a full investigation. He cited factors including deregulation for that. What is being called the world's largest semiconductor plant? Here's a picture of a semiconductor plant. This isn't the one that's going to be built. This new one will be built in South Korea. It is worth nearly $230 billion. It will be located right outside Seoul. A Samsung spokesperson told CNBC the company's investment goes all the way until 2042. The new head of Silicon Valley Bank says it is open for business as usual. The question is, do you want to go there? This comes after the FDIC took control of the bank last week following its collapse. NBC News reporting the bank's new CEO held a meeting with employees today assuring them SVB is not closing its doors. He said the company is making new loans, it's processing payments, it's carrying out usual business activities. Federal authorities stepped in, though, to back all of the bank's deposits. Here's a picture. This happened yesterday. Highway 101 in Mendocino County, Humboldt County, I should say, partly sinking off and cracking down toward the hillside. This is just some of the damage in California.
There's never been anything like this.
It really is. I think there has been, but like so much rain, unrelenting like this. Look at the damage.
Yeah.
God.
That's Highway 101. I mean, that's like the major, thoroughfare getting through Humboldt County. And look, they've got a little blue barrel there. That's cute. It's all hands on deck for crews across California.
It's all blue barrels on deck.
It's all blue barrels. Blue barrels tell the story. Some getting a much needed break today from heavy rain and wind, but several areas are still flooded or covered in snow. Nearly 30,000 people remain out of their evacuated homes. Governor Gavin Newsom expanding the state of emergency yesterday to include 3 more counties. Those are Alpine, Orange, and Trinity. This, he says, will help with storm response and relief efforts. As it stands now, there are 16 rivers above flood stage, some levees still at their breaking point. The good thing is the water's now receding a bit. More than 194,000 people woke up in the dark this morning, most along the Central Coast and in Northern California. That storm yesterday added to the trail of damage in Placer County. They had a mudslide slam into one home, send a tree through a window. In South Lake Tahoe, snow toppled a gas station awning, which lit a pump and started a fire. In Placerville, a CHP officer almost fell into a sinkhole as he was driving over it. Photos show his patrol car teetering on the edge. So this isn't the only sinkhole in California, it looks like. Meanwhile, progress is being made at the Pajaro River. Here's a picture of the levee break at the Pajaro area. Crews have the gap down to 20 feet now, and they expect it to be fully closed by today. The breach happened Saturday. It was longer than a football field. That led to widespread flooding in Pajaro, leaving entire neighborhoods underwater. Another levee break on Monday was kind of helping take the pressure off the river. Those repairs will start once the floodwaters receive some more. And Governor Gavin Newsom, I should say the state of California, really demanding now to know the plans for all pharmacies to sell abortion medication. Governor Gavin Newsom and 13 other state leaders sent a letter to CVS, Rite Aid, Walmart, Safeway, Kroger, Costco, and Health Mart. They want these companies to explain how they will safeguard access to reproductive health care. The governors urge decisions be made based on science, medical evidence, and the well-being of patients, not politics or litigation threats. Walgreens has already said it won't sell abortion pills in 20 GOP-led states, even states where abortion is legal. And lastly, the French Bulldog. Whether you like the French Bulldog or not, it is the new top dog in America. That according to the American Kennel Club, which says it ended the Labrador Retriever's 31-year stay at the top. The Lab is now the second most popular dog breed in the country, followed by the Golden Retriever.
There's never been anything like this.
Okay, right.
The German Shepherd, and the Poodle. So it goes French Dog, Golden Retriever, German Shepherd, and Poodle. Yeah, that's how that goes.
They're adorable. Adorable always seems to, carry the day. And with more and more people, I think, living in situations where they need small dogs or want the companion of a dog, they
but they're
like
bred to be unhealthy, those little guys.
Well, the breeding of dogs is almost by definition going to end up in bad places. So you're right. I mean, the more you breed within the breed and look for, quote, a pure breed, the more unhealthy it is. Yeah.
These little guys, from what I understand, they're bred to have their noses smashed in like that.
Right.
And kind of the more squished in their face, the more desirable. But in doing so, they have all kinds of breathing issues.
Right. It's the same thing with the what is it? The American Bulldog? I forget now. The larger one. It's the one that Winston Churchill had. Somebody can tell me. Anyway, yes, you're right.
Google it.
It's the problem with essentially breeding these animals for cosmetic perfection that you want, and it's sad. But they are adorable. I get
they're
it.
really cute. Yeah, they're very cute. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. So, if you need help with your taxes, check in with Steve Moskowitz. He's at 888-TAX-DEAL. He's also at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité.
I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Use Mark Thompson.
It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
Thank you so
You
much.
are a cover-up artist, and you are a writer.
Yes, what up, everybody? It is our big second hour. Mark Thompson Show. I'm Mark. Great to have you with us. We're live on YouTube every day, 10 to noon. And then you can watch the show anytime. You can also podcast it. One of the things that's happening tomorrow is the beginning of Mark's Madness. The commissioner for Mark's Madness, believe it or not, Albert, is not going to be in the mix physically, like connected to us. I think he's going to log in and connect from wherever he is, some exotic locale. He's on vacation. But there is a special surprise tomorrow to kick off Mark's Madness.
I can't believe it! Mark's Madness!
I can't say more, but I can tell you that tomorrow it all gets started. Pick up your bracket and the explainer as to how to get your bracket on Albert's very fine explainer, which he did under videos. You'll find it on our channel. So if you go to our channel, The Mark Thompson Show, under videos, you will see Albert's explainer. It'll show you how to log on, and you can play. We start tomorrow. Very excited about it. Kim and I both have to fill out our... we have sort of indicated which way we're going on various showdowns, but we have yet to formalize our brackets.
Do you have to fill out your bracket ahead of time, or can you kind of play as you go?
Wait to see which ones win, and then just put those in.
So like day by day, when you play it, like then check off your favorite.
No, the way it works in the way the NCAA March Madness works is you have to fill out ahead of time those winners that you think are going to. I've already given you one winner, Kim. We agreed on it. Remember, we think processes and protocols and standards, which plays off against my bad.
My bad. I'm sorry.
My bad.
I'm sorry.
So take that. That's one winner already. But you never know when there's an upset. You never know when there's going to be an upset. That's why you can't play it. You can't wait until. That's like saying, can't I bet the football game like in the fourth quarter? No, you got to bet it ahead of time.
But I can vote. But I can vote for the winner even if I don't fill out the bracket.
That's the thing. So if you don't want to fill out a bracket, you can just vote for which one you want to win or which one you think will win, which is really the way we do it.
My bad. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a question. It's not a question.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to do. You can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
That's strong. It depends on what you put it up against.
Right.
Really.
Let me just see what that's up against right now, and I will tell you. You can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas. Okay. Tomorrow in Mark's Madness. Now, it won't play tomorrow, this showdown. It'll probably be in a few days. In other words, there are 2 drops per hour for the run of Mark's Madness. So tomorrow, I've already told you we start, I think, with Where My Weed Smoker's At and Shirley. I'm very unhappy with everything I've heard today on the show. But eventually, going back to Texas could go real deep in this one, but going back to Texas.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
What would you do if you put that against Shirley?
Well, it might end up against Shirley, but not tomorrow, but in the first round, it will go up against.
Straight up right in, no problem.
Straight up right in, no problem.
Straight up right in, no problem.
Now, here's the thing about straight up right in. It used to run a lot on this show, and I think it had a kind of bigger brand name.
Right.
Straight up right in, no problem.
But that's Dave from Chico from KGO.
Yeah.
I think its audio quality hurts it.
Oh, you think it's well? It was a call.
Because,
it was
exactly.
To the old
compared
show.
to the other one that's not a call, like phone audio.
Yeah,
so I think it might have the advantage.
Yeah.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Well, of course, I'd expect Tony to respond to the audio quality.
Natalie's got in her bracket back to Texas as the final winner.
It might be.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
It'll play off against straight up right in, though, in the first round.
Straight up right in, no problem.
Yeah. So that is in Mark's Madness, which starts tomorrow, although that showdown will likely not happen for several days. I still think here's a tough one also. Stephen A. The Stephen A. apology. It's seeded, and the seedings relate to how strong it is, okay, in the commissioner's judgment, all right? In the commissioner's judgment, the Stephen A. apology is not seeded very high.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
It's seeded 27 against a top 10 seed, and that is Trump. And
there's never been anything like this.
There's never
I
been
think there's never been
this.
anything like this is going to go deep also.
Yeah.
So I'll give you another one that's going to be tough. I don't know which way to go on this. This is legit. I don't know what's going to happen here. Here is the, it's this. It's your favorite.
Sayonara, sucker.
Right? You love that. Kim loves that.
That's part of my everyday vernacular, yes.
Right. You do. Kim throws it in, sayonara, sucker.
Yeah.
But it's going up in the first round against...
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
Oh, that's really tough. Porn stars went deep last year.
Oh,
porn stars
my.
went deep in the tournament. So you have to make a decision. Sayonara, sucker, or porn stars, and that's going to happen in the first round.
What are the porn stars doing, Mark?
I think porn stars wins that. I think so.
I love my friend Pat. You know, she's my girl, but I'm going sayonara, sucker.
Ah, well, I'd expect that. That's on brand for you.
Yeah.
So you are saying to Pat, sayonara, sucker?
Indeed, this is what I'm saying.
You can find all the information here on YouTube. Albert has a whole explainer as to how to log in, and also, he gives you the password, he gives you the ID, everything. You should be all set, but you do have to set up an account, which is pretty easy to do. So any problems, you can, whatever happened to that's pure speculation. Oh, yeah, you did ask that before. It's not in the tournament, I don't think. And one of the reasons it's not, I think, is we just haven't used it on the show in a while.
That's pure speculation.
But you're right, it's good. I don't know why I didn't make, this is a commissioner question. I don't have the reason. I would guess that it's just because it hasn't been in the rotation much. But you're right, it's certainly deserved.
They can't all make the cut, right?
That's the point. But I don't really know the reason. In fact, I'm just saying that out of pure speculation.
That's pure speculation.
John wants to know how the winners are determined or calculated, and I think it's by voting, right?
Yeah, we'll vote on YouTube. There'll be a poll every day, each hour for the 2 and the 2, like the 2 in the first hour, the 2 in the second hour, and also in the chat. That's how we did it on KGO. We did it in texting. Remember? Yeah. Now, that's something else. Remember in the old days, we used to run that for a text. Why don't you just text it?
Why don't you just text it?
We don't run that anymore, right? We used to run it used to be on Twitter. Here's a tweet.
Here is a tweet from Mother Teresa.
So that's gone. Yeah. They're not in the tournament anymore. Yeah. So we'll do it live. Spencer is saying, we'll do it live is in the tournament.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Let me see who we'll do it live is going up against.
We do vote live, so that is true.
Oh, this is a tough one. We'll do it live is up against.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah. Those two go up against each other. We'll do it live takes on the Lord.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
And
this is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
I feel like we'll do it live is going to win that, but I don't know.
As a broadcaster, as being in broadcasting as long as I have, do it live just hits a special place in my heart.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah.
We'll do it live.
It's like, I get it, man. I get it.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. Of course, the true newest drop, and it is a dark horse, but it might be the Cinderella story, is the Jim Avila, ma'am, I'm on the phone.
Yes.
Was the, did I... for some reason, it's not when the time comes.
You're like
sure
a DJ
I'm doing
in
something
there
wrong,
with
Tony.
All your little buttons and your little things.
Well, it's hard because they're all. I don't know what I did here, Tony. Why is it not coming on? It's on the laptop.
Okay.
The laptop's plugged in. I don't know. Anyway, Jim Avila's.
I'm on the phone, ma'am.
I'm on the phone. That is a Cinderella potential entry to go deep. And I believe, ma'am, I'm on the phone, goes up against the producer, has no idea what he's doing in the first round. So that's going to be a good showdown. I don't know which one you pick there.
The producer has no idea what he's doing. That's good.
That's branding. It's so often heard that it might, it might take it. But so we only have a minute or two, but I would like to get couple of these stories in from the world of the courts. There was an important decision made by a San Francisco judge. As I said, I'll give you the update on the Batmobile case, the follow, and then we talk to the Frontline Correspondent, documentary producer, who has a tremendous Frontline episode, and it's called Easy Money. It's all about the feds. It couldn't drop at a better time. We'll do that after Kim's news. But right now, let's do it without any further delay. This is Law and Disorder. Maybe a little
in
more
the
of a
criminal
delay.
justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The state of Ohio is suing Norfolk Southern over the February 3rd derailment of their freight train, released over 1 million gallons of hazardous materials. I don't need to remind you.
In the criminal justice system.
Yeah. I think just hearing it once is enough, but thank you. You maybe have it just run in the background. That could work also. Into the environment, with all those millions of gallons of hazardous materials and pollutants, as you know. The derailment was entirely avoidable, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost said at a press conference. This is just yesterday this happened. Ohio's suit filed in the U.S. District Court said that the derailment resulted in the release of over 1 million gallons of hazardous materials, as I was just telling you, into Ohio's air, streams, rivers, soil, and groundwater, killing tens of thousands of fish and other animals and recklessly endangering the health of Ohioans throughout the region. The state of Ohio now has launched this case. They want prior and future costs tied to this derailment. They're alleging this legally now in court, that the railroad violated state laws that regulated the control of hazardous waste, solid waste, and air and water pollution. I told you at the time that this horrendous catastrophe pointed up everything wrong with so many of the regulatory systems that are rolled back in this country. We keep talking about burdensome regulations, the length of the train, the number of staffers that were on the train actually managing the situation, the toxic chemicals that weren't categorized as toxic chemicals because of the deregulation. You don't need to categorize them that way anymore. So now the Norfolk Southern people will be in court against the state of Ohio. So we'll keep you posted on that. We, of course, anticipated this, but also in a San Francisco court, bravo San Francisco court, a San Francisco judge issued a legal judgment saying that the U.S. Wildlife Official Agency, made up of U.S. wildlife officials, are violating their legal duty as issued by failing to protect endangered Pacific humpback whales from being killed. This is in government-approved waters. So, in other words, there are certain, again, protections that are issued to these areas involving whales, and these humpback whales are being killed in areas off the coast of California, Oregon, and Washington. This is a federal judge in the city, ruled this yesterday. The National Marine Fisheries Service was required to include a plan to protect the whales when it issued a 3-year offshore permit in 2021 to the commercial sablefish industry. They didn't do that. Sablefish are these fish, they're bottom-dwelling fish. They're caught by commercial vessels in tens of thousands of these ocean floor pots connected by these long lines. And what happens with the long lines? The whales become entangled in them.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this federal judge stepped up in the city. There are various protective strategies that the judge is asking the agency to issue and to follow through on. And essentially, the judge is saying that the agency and wildlife officials didn't do enough to satisfy their obligation under the laws that protect humpback whales. And I'll remind you, that's an endangered species. So
humpbacks are endangered?
They're considered in peril or something. There's a category before endangered officially, and they're vanishing or imperiled or something. So I might have misspoke when I say endangered. It's the Batmobile saga, quickly will update that. They, believe it or not, had an independent investigation. This happened right down in the peninsula. Guy had commissioned for a Batmobile facsimile to be made, like a real version of the Batmobile, to be constructed in Indiana, and the San Mateo County Board of Soups had to vote to make this report public, and they did. There was a raid by the San Mateo County Sheriff's investigators to this Indiana garage. They sent the cops all the way to Indiana, to the garage that builds these Batmobiles, we told you at the time it was ridiculous, an incredible overreach. And the guy hadn't paid his bill. There was a reason they were holding up the delivery of the Batmobile. It sounds insane, but this is a rich guy who was paying a couple $100,000 for the Batmobile. There's nothing wrong with being rich or buying a Batmobile, but I'm saying then to have your buddy, who was the then leaving office sheriff, send out a couple of, it was 4, I believe, of his deputies there to essentially, in my judgment, more or less shake down and scare this garage person. They pulled him into the police station. Well, they did the investigation, and of course, it's completely out of line. The report says the sheriff took the call because from the Batmobile orderer, if you will, client, because he's acquainted with him. He's a local business person and a friend of the sheriff's brother. The sheriff referred the case to the head of his vehicle theft task force, even though this case did not fall within its mission. The head of the task force spent 6 months investigating this, then took a crew of 4 department personnel to raid the Batmobile garage in Indiana. Anyway, the judge said that this is way out of line, and the report calls out everybody for that ridiculous boondoggle and that shakedown. And that is Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Very excited about this Frontline documentary that I saw last night, and it's terrific, and it couldn't drop at a better time. It's all about the Fed policy and about money supply, and it takes you back to the beginning of COVID. It's weird how so much time passes so quickly, you know, that you almost forget. Plus, to be fair, the Fed fund rate has escalated super quickly, and that's a part of this as well. So James Jacoby, the producer, the correspondent, and writer of this great documentary, joins us next. Love Frontline, and they did another great one. So we'll get into that next. Smash the like button like a boss, Kim's News, and then we'll talk to James. Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888-TAX-DEAL. Let's talk about abortion again. The first hearing in a big case involving an abortion drug. It's happening now in Texas. Alliance Defending Freedom sued in November on behalf of 4 pro-life medical organizations and 4 doctors who say they treated patients with mifepristone. The drug was approved in 2000, but the lawsuit claims the government deliberately ignored what the plaintiffs described as harmful side effects. President Biden is in Las Vegas today, where he is scheduled to speak about plans to lower the price of prescription drugs. He arrived in Vegas last night following a trip to the Los Angeles area. His visit comes as his administration announced it is subjecting 27 drugs to inflation penalties. And the Biden administration is facing a lawsuit now from more than a half dozen environmental groups over its decision to improve the controversial Willow oil drilling project in Alaska. The environmental nonprofit group Trustees for Alaska filed a lawsuit on behalf of 6 advocacy groups yesterday against multiple agencies. The lawsuit argues the ConocoPhillips Willow project will negatively affect habitats protected by federal law.
Well, that seems indisputable, you know. But
I mean, I don't know how you can
ignore
fight against that one, ignore that.
But, you know.
We'll see how that one goes. In Sonoma County, look at the gas station, very American. Gas station, Exxon, America, right? Yeah.
All you need is a gun, and it's America.
I pledge allegiance to the gas of the United States. The Sonoma County Board of Supervisors approving a ban on new retail gas stations in unincorporated areas of the county. It has also approved a ban on expansions to existing gas stations, including adding more pumps, so you can't do it in Sonoma County. 6 of the 9 cities in Sonoma County have taken similar steps. The Petaluma City Council was the first to ban new fossil fuel stations when it passed a measure in March of 2021. The other 5 cities signing on to that, Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, Sebastopol, Cotati, and Windsor. Sonoma County has 158 retail gas stations, 46 of them are in unincorporated areas. And kind of a story, but I don't know if you've been following this. Looks like a regular warehouse. The Alameda County Coroner's Bureau is now working to contact more than 100 families in 15 different counties after bodies and cremated remains were found in a warehouse last week. It is linked to the it is linked to the a suspended Hayward cremation business called Ocean View Cremations. The remains were found after an investigation was opened following complaints from customers from the California Cemetery and Funeral Bureau. Who knew there was such a thing? Yelp reviews accuse the company of waiting months to cremate bodies and holding ashes for years. Why?
Wow.
5 bodies have been
Plus,
positively
I don't associate
identified.
The funeral homes with getting Yelp reviews. That's just in itself
apparently
is
they
kinda
do.
wild.
You've got to Yelp it before you take your loved one there, 5 bodies positively identified. There are still more than 150 unidentified remains. According to authorities, Ocean View, sounds pleasant, had its business license suspended in 2018, and again this last January. They were never allowed to store remains at their Hayward warehouse. And yet...
Wow. I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
Oh, it's the Trump brand expanding to funeral homes. Nice job.
Yeah. OpenAI, let me get rid of this warehouse with the dead bodies. OpenAI announcing the latest version of its primary large language model today. It's called GPT-4. The company says it exhibits human-level performance on many professional tests. According to OpenAI, GPT-4 performed in the 90th percentile on simulated bar exams and can beat 90% of humans on the SAT.
Oh, my God.
Right. Meanwhile, Google announced new features coming to search, including access to artificial intelligence-driven health research. The search giant says MedPal-M, like MedPalm, but MedPal-M, can answer a wide variety of health questions. I mean, really, who needs a human doctor? The update and other health-related initiatives were announced during the company's annual event called The Checkup. And here's a little kind of that's rich at the end of news for you. Actor Alec Baldwin continues to lower the price of his New York vacation home. The sale of this house isn't going so well. Located in Amagansett,
I think Amagansett, maybe?
That's right. You said it. On Long Island's East End, the 4-bedroom residence is now available for $22.5 million. It was first listed late last year with a price tag of $29 million. So the price is slowly sinking. Amagansett? Is that what you said?
Amagansett, right. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses. He is at 888-TAX-DEAL and at MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So cool that you could be here, and it's so cool that this guy, thank you for your patience, James Jacoby, hanging out in our green room. He has written, produced, and is reporting, the correspondent of this latest documentary out of the Frontline series. They really are about 100%. I'm trying to think, I was thinking this last night, have I ever watched a Frontline that wasn't like really, really good? No, they're all incredible. And this one is so right for this moment in our economic history and the history of this country. It's called Easy Money. How about a welcome for James Jacoby, everybody?
Hey, great
wow.
to be here.
What a task. This documentary takes you through the world of the Fed and how they deal with various issues confronting the economy, things that we read about and talk about all the time. Inflation, money supply, stock market, and all the rest. It seems like a delicate balancing act. And then you get all of the key figures in this decision-making process in your documentary. I'm speaking enthusiastically because I really was impressed. Take us through some of the high points of this, if you would, please, James Jacoby.
Well, first of all, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad you're a fan of Frontline, and I'm glad you're a fan of this film, Age of Easy Money. So, I'd say, listen, right now is a weird highlight. It's a precarious moment. We've seen, two big bank failures. Today's news that a huge European bank is there's seemingly a loss of confidence there, and what we're seeing right now is this. Where the financial world and the economy are catching up with the fact that this easy money policy that the Fed has been running for 14 years is now over. They've pulled away the punch bowl, and we'll see what happens as a result of that. So, I mean, I'm telling you something that's very current because it's top of mind for me, and it's sort of a bizarre thing to have worked on this thing for 2 years, and then literally 3 days before we go to air with it, worrying about whether anyone's going to want to watch or whether it's going to be relevant to whatever's in the news, because the news cycle's crazy, as we all know. Well, we literally start seeing the effects of what we've been reporting on for 2 years.
Yeah, as I was saying, you couldn't drop at a better moment. And the thing that it's funny how one crisis bumps out of the other crises in your mind. So this banking situation is the thing that was bumping out the beginnings. You even predate COVID. It's great. Your documentary goes back before that, and you kind of see the run-up. And we talked a lot on this show about what was happening with all the money that was injected into the economy and all the breaks that corporations were getting in the buybacks. I mean, that we weren't alone. I mean, the buybacks were being talked about by many. But you see the kind of the one-dimensional character that the economy has. You also see the inevitability of it being one-dimensional. That's what I thought your documentary really pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, what we really aimed to do here, and it was pretty ambitious, was to just kind of say, look, I think that it's indisputable that the great financial crisis and what we went through in 2008 was a sea change for this country politically and economically. And what we really, this latest chapter, which, was end of, was the Obama years into the Trump years and now the Biden years. This is, we wanted to kind of look at this as an era that was almost defined by this policy coming out of the ashes of what came out of the ashes of the great financial crisis. And when you look at that, one of the big things that you just can't, it's glaringly obvious, is what the Federal Reserve has been doing. They brought interest rates down to zero during the financial crisis. They started with all sorts of experimental policies like quantitative easing to try to keep interest rates low. And we've really been running the economy on easy money for the past 14 years or so. And we're now seeing the result of what happens when you pull back on that. And you've got an entire global economy essentially that's been addicted to it.
Right, and the success of the stock market, and you talk about this in your documentary, and then you confront, as I say, those at the Federal Reserve and different places around the country about this. It seems tied to the stock market. The stock market is tied to so much happiness and a perception of the economy. I mean, obviously, the retirement funds and all the rest that are tied up in that market. But if you respond only to the stock market, then you as the Fed aren't doing the job that the Fed is really supposed to do.
Absolutely. And we do. I mean, you asked about highlights, and I certainly think, Neil Kashkari, I give him a lot of credit.
He was terrific.
Yeah.
Wow. He was so honest with you, I thought.
I thought so too. And even more so, look, I tried to get a lot of people from the Fed, sitting people, to talk to me, to sit down for interviews, whether it was the chairman, Jay Powell, or vice chair, or anyone from the Federal Reserve Board, or other presidents of the regional banks. The only one to agree to sit down for an on-camera interview is Neil Kashkari. And so I give him a lot of credit for that.
And to remind everybody who Neil Kashkari is, please.
He's the president of the Minneapolis Fed, which is one of the 12 regional banks at the Fed. And he's he's an interesting guy and very bright, very staunch defender of what the Fed's been doing, and really not afraid of sitting down for 2 interviews for this film over the course of reporting this thing, to really answer the tough questions. And I think he does a very good job, robust defense of what they've been doing. And I really think it gives viewers a solid idea as to what their intentions were. But as you mentioned, the stock market going up for all these years, now we're seeing a lot of turbulence there as they pull away the punch bowl again. But the Fed was, he takes on the challenges that I give him about whether the Fed was really working to make the stock market go up and a market that was addicted to its easy money.
I must tell you you bring everything to this magnificent conclusion. This, by the way, quite the project. So I give you, mad respect for pulling this all together. You have to chronicle a lot of events, then you have to try to get a hold of the people who are associated with these events. I mean, it's the corkboard true crime complication on top of complication, right?
Yeah.
And you do it effectively. And so at the end, there's this culmination of it. Like, where are we? What can we expect? And you talk to billionaires, and you talk to major managers of tremendous amounts of money, those who've succeeded immensely. Yeah. And you realize that the Fed, which is one of the big focuses of what you're talking about, of course, is caught sort of in a weird way. It left me thinking, oh no, they really are caught.
Yeah. They're in a bind. They're in a terrible, terrible bind. I mean, think about it right now, right? We've got an inflation problem in this country. It hurts everybody. It especially hurts people, in the middle and lower, strata of the economic ladder. And it's much more painful than I think a lot of people give it credit for right now. It's obviously come down a bit. It's continuing to come down, but it's still much, much higher than where the Fed would want it or where any of us is comfortable with it. So the Fed's had to raise interest rates to try to get that under control. But we can see the bind they're in. They've raised interest rates dramatically over the past year or so. And now we're seeing stress in the banking system all of a sudden. All of the things that the banks have been doing and buying and all these securities that they own on their balance sheets that were calibrated for zero interest rates now have to be recalibrated for higher rates, and those values of those things plummet. And so we're in this very precarious situation again, where the Fed is caught because it's trying to raise rates to get inflation down. That's a national prerogative, and it is the Fed's main mandate. And at the same time, it's there's potential financial stability problems with what it's doing. So the irony in some ways, and I think this comes across in the film, I hope it does, is that they sort of painted themselves into this corner. They got themselves into this bind because the economy's become so addicted to what they were doing for so long. Then, of course, exiting from that paradigm is going to be difficult.
Yeah, you talk about the sugar high that the stock market was on with the rates being so low and how that clearly just jetted everything up. And you also touched on, and this is what I talk about when the time passes and you forget, you talk about that even Janet Yellen, as different characters begin to take control of the situation of the Fed, she was having to say, even though she was trying to pull back this policy of easy money, she was having to say, I don't expect we're going to have a raising of rates over the next quarter, or whatever her comments were. In other words, she had to almost give the markets, some kind of indication that the Fed wasn't going to be aggressive in raising rates. She had to at least say it.
She did. I mean, there's been episode after episode that we chronicle in this film where the Fed's trying to take away a little bit of these policies, and the markets throw it, and it's called a tantrum, a taper tantrum. We talk about it in, I think, 2013, and it happens again a little bit later during the Trump administration. Trump berates Fed Chair Powell at the time, saying, you're really screwing up our economic gains here by trying to raise interest rates a little bit to try to normalize things a little bit. But again, the markets threw a tantrum. Trump threw a tantrum. It was a very, it's been, and the irony is that Jerome Powell, who's been at the Fed quite a while now and has been chair for about 7 or so years, he took on that position appointed by Trump, saying he really wanted to pull back on easy money as well. He thought it was time. And so now he's doing it because inflation reared its head. But again, back to your point, they're in a big bind.
Yeah, at the end of it, you wonder what the right moves are. there's no bad guy here.
No.
There is, as you say, this market, the stock market and the worldwide market. You point to that as well.
Yeah.
That is addicted to the, to the easy money, to the they're essentially giving money away. And then the cranking of the rates and how that has put a shock into the system. And now that reverberation extends into the banking system.
Yeah. I mean, and you kind of watch it unfold in the second hour, because we start the second hour of the film with COVID. And, as we all, we've spent so much time thinking about COVID and the virus, and that type of, those stories have been, things that we've focused so much on. But I felt like not enough people realized what was going on economically. We did the CARES Act. We did that was $2.2 trillion of federal assistance, very much needed federal assistance to get us over through the pandemic.
But you also talk about what happens with a lot of that money. People were going, hey, I want the fast money also.
Well, the thing was that the Fed was doing extraordinary things to try to keep the economy going and the financial system afloat during the pandemic. They kept those emergency measures in place for a couple of years after the pandemic hit. And so you had a tremendous stimulus from the federal government to help, Main Street and also corporations, and a lot of people get through it. You had that during Trump. Then Biden comes in, he does his stimulus. In the meantime, the Fed's doing its stimulus, and all this money coming out into the system, combined with supply shocks from the pandemic, which we all know about, the scarcity of certain things and supply chain problems, and all that combines to create this inflation that they didn't foresee, and they let get way too high. And didn't really pull back for a very long time. So I do ask Neil Kashkari, the Minneapolis president of the Fed there, did you run it too hot for too long? And he basically did say, yeah, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, we should have tightened things sooner.
That's something you'll never hear from somebody in that position typically. I gave him mad, respect for that also.
I was frankly surprised that he said it. I really was. It's very rare, as you're saying, to hear that level of candor about it, and to essentially admit he was wrong. I mean, he thought one thing. It's not to blame him. They thought one thing. It was crisis time. They thought inflation was transitory, is what they called it. Didn't turn out to be. How would they know? But the fact is, they did run it too hot, too long.
Yeah.
So we're left with the consequences now.
You also see the way that benefits are reaped immediately. Just in our last couple of minutes here, James Jacoby, again, the correspondent, writer, producer of this Frontline documentary. It's terrific. It's riveting. I mean, it's great, man. And one of the things you do is you talk to this repeatedly. You talk to a Wall Street Journal guy. I think you had a couple of people from the Wall Street Journal on, but one of them was really, I thought, again, very unvarnished in not giving you some sort of institutional answer about the market. He talked about the way corporations are really looking to cash in quickly on this kind of. They're not there to take care of the public, to take care of workers. There's no sense of social responsibility or to be good corporate citizens. They're there to serve their bottom line and their stock price.
Yes. So when you combine those instincts, in corporate America with an easy money policy, which essentially enabled corporate America to issue huge amounts of debt take on huge amounts of debt for very cheap. Why wouldn't you, if you can take that borrowed money and use it in a lot of cases to buy back your own share and send your share price up? Sure. I mean, you think about it, it's perverse in a lot of ways. I mean, Neil Kashkari says, listen, and this is true, a lot of companies didn't see opportunities for growth, and they thought that was a wise allocation of their own resources. So be it. But at the same time, that money wasn't being put into raises. It wasn't being put into hiring more people necessarily, or new plants and equipment or infrastructure. It was unfortunately, I think one of the themes of this film, and I hope it comes through to you, is that there were some squandered opportunities here. It's the cheapest money in human history. The country didn't invest much. Corporate America didn't invest much. It wasn't used for great purposes.
You had one of your experts or one of those involved again in this, and you talked to all these key figures, made just that point, that it was, here was your chance to really do infrastructure for nothing. I mean, literally, they're giving you the money for nothing. You don't do infrastructure. Instead, it's just everybody looking to, put it into their pockets. And, those CEOs, their compensation is linked to the stock price. So, of course, it's like, give me the shortest distance between here and that compensation.
Yeah, well, as Sheila Bair puts it, she's remarkable. She's the former head of the FDIC, which is that and the Fed are the agencies in the news right now, because what are they going to do if other banks collapse? But she was the top banking regulator, and she puts it really well. I mean, as she says, it's really hard for a company to hire people. It's really hard to build a new plant and come up with a new thing. It's really easy to issue some debt, use that money, buy back your own stock, boost your share price, and pay yourself handsome bonuses. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
Well, I also give you credit for not using the Will Lyman, the narrator who normally does all the frontline stuff. That I'm usually I know him because I audition against him on a lot of stuff. He is always going to beat me out because he's better than I am. But he does that. The Tonight on Frontline, reporter James Jacoby inside the U.S. economic system. Right? Isn't he? Isn't that him?
Wow,
yeah.
Wow. Mark. Yeah. That's good. That was very. I mean. Well done. Will's.
It's too expensive for this one. Is that what happened, James?
No,
I love that you narrated it yourself.
I narrated it, and it's really funny because I peeked on YouTube earlier because the film is up on YouTube right now, streaming there, and I look at the comments, which you should never do. And someone was like, "I really like the regular narrator. They should go back to that guy." And I'm like, all right, I can take it, but it made more sense for this Frontline for me to do it because it was kind of my journey through this story. So,
well, I also will tell you this, and I'm a narrator myself, so as you could tell, so I say this.
You've got a voice. I mean, you've got it like.
Yeah, thank you. But I think one of the great things is that you read it like it was conversational. You read it like you're telling me, what you did, who these people are, whatever. I thought it was really good. So oftentimes you can get in that booth and you kind of, you tighten up, but you didn't do that. It was really good.
It took a few takes.
Okay.
But I appreciate
check it out.
I appreciate the compliment.
Age of Easy Money, it's called. It's on Frontline. You can find it on in a number of places. Of course, on PBS Passport, on PB, wherever your PBS station is, KCET. What are the PBS stations, Kim? The various, whether San Francisco, it's KQED, and Los Angeles, KCET.
Yeah.
That's where most of our audience is on the West Coast in those two cities.
Or just pbs.org or pbs.org/frontline. Or guess what? On YouTube. Not that I necessarily want to give them the business, but that's there you go. They it's up on streaming on YouTube right now too.
That's great. I mean, such an important story and so well done. So appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
James Jacoby tonight on Frontline. All right. All right, pal. Nice job. And I look forward to your next piece of work because you're really a talented guy. I really appreciate it. James Jacoby, everybody. Bravo.
Wow.
Right
the
on.
timing of that is just amazing.
Eerie.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, really eerie. And it's just so perfect. It gives you so much information. It's a great 2-hour watch. I recommend it. What do I have to do, Kim? Do I have to remind everyone?
Thank some people, I think.
We got supers to do.
Oh, I love thanking. Let me put my credibility glasses on. Hang on a second.
There we go.
All right. Now, what do we have? Kevin Hobbs, I could thank you till the end of time. You have a place of worship, I would almost call it, in Thompson Terrace.
Big shout out.
Yes. Kevin Hobbs, 3366, thank you. Valerie, thank you. And I'll throw in two other thank yous.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
The best.
We're crowd-funded. We appreciate you being the crowd and producing funds for us. Big shout out to Walter.
Big shout out.
Aloha, baby. Best wishes for health all the way around. Isn't that nice?
Mahalo.
Yeah, aloha to you, my friend. Mahalo. Ann Herring for $4.99.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ann. Appreciate that very, very much indeed. Wes, what up, Wes? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
$5 from Wes. And Photo Walks gave us a like button. He says he hit it like a boss.
Nice.
Yeah, you don't hit like a boss. Jefferson, how many times do we have to play it?
You
smash it like
That's
a boss.
right.
Smashed it with your iron rod. Smashed it with your iron rod.
You can hit it on Photo Walks. You can smash it on this show.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
We love you, Jefferson Graham, and we'll see you tomorrow. Sharon Kidd for $19.99. What up, Sharon?
Thank you so much.
Sharon, you're lovely and a regular contributor. Sorry, Kim, please go ahead.
I will add with Sharon Kidd. She messaged me last night. She was concerned that her Patreon didn't go through. She increased it to $75 a month. So we appreciate that, Sharon Kidd.
That is
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I might cry.
Really nice. Yeah.
One of the things we've done is Luis $9.99 Marks Madness. Can't find it on DraftKings. Stupid new 810 should carry it. That's true. It's funny, very on brand for their new spread, K spread or whatever. LOL. Thanks, Luis. Mike Kendricks. I'll get back to was it Susan? Susan, I think, wasn't it? That on Patreon.
Sure.
Sharon Kidd. Yeah.
Sure.
Sharon. Yeah. Sharon Kidd. She's such a she's a real supporter. I mean, Sharon is active all the time. It's more than just money. She is in touch and is just magnificent. And of course, we need the money to help us make payroll.
So snow pictures and
Yeah, and Sharon also, sorry, I'm just going to round out on Sharon. Poor Tony. He keeps thinking I'm done, so he's putting up the next one. And then it's like,
thanks, Tony.
But Sharon has led the way on Patreon. Several of you have stepped up your contributions, and that means a lot because there are things happening here that really put us kind of close to the edge. So it's very, very comforting to have you guys do that. So thank you for that on Patreon. And Sharon's a great supporter there and here. So thank you. Now, Tony, please.
Thanks, Tony.
Mike Hendricks, thank you for the super sticker. Mike, big shout out. Yeah.
What up, Mike?
Big shout out, Mike. Also a regular supporter. Thank you for throwing in. Really do appreciate it. Luz Espinoza checking in. I have meetings all day. We'll catch you on the replay later. Love Marks Madness. I made my husband do his own bracket. Yeah. I think it's going to be a fun Marks Madness. I am looking forward to it myself, Luce, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
In fact, I see some even early round, real tough stuff. Gail Guthrie for $19.99. Big shout out. Big shout out. Yeah.
Thank you, Gail Guthrie.
Thank you, Gail Guthrie. Love it. Calvin, of course. Calvin is the shadow producer of this show, so thank you so much. Thank you so much, Calvin. Get a lot of content from Calvin. And Kevin Hobbs is back. 21-21. Come on, Kevin Hobbs. Thank you. Harry Magnan, can I just tickle it? No, you cannot just tickle it, Harry. $20, huge shout out or big shout out, I like to say.
Big shout out.
But you got to smash it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Is the Mark Tote new? No, it is not. It was one of the original items. We love the Mark Tote, and it's perfect to tote things, which is what you want in a tote.
Thanks, Tony.
So I recommend the Mark Tote. It's there at getmarkmerch.com. I'm wearing the Marks Madness hat through all of Marks Madness. I will wear it. And again, I encourage you to check out Marks Madness on YouTube, a full explainer from the Commissioner Albert, who will join us tomorrow. I up my donation, up yours. I love it. I get it.
Now,
I can't believe it.
Marks Madness.
This time tomorrow, we'll be wrapping up day one of Marks Madness. I recommend you jump on board now. A full explainer as to how to register. If you played last year, you already have an account at this same place. And then, as I say, Albert will walk you through. The video is on YouTube now. And tomorrow, Marks Madness begins. Good luck, everybody. I've given you one winner today. We'll see you tomorrow. And that's what we're going to do, the magic of Marks Madness tomorrow. Now, I know what you're saying. Mark, it's late. Why don't you get out of here and let Kim go to her? How dare you say something like that? Look. This is what's on Nikki's show. She talks about the storm. Big clashes at UC Davis.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk was there on campus. That's always good to stir the pot.
Couple arrests, an officer injured. It was a big to-do.
Reparations are being talked about. I saw that, millions of dollars, too.
Yeah.
Clark Reed has tech news. And why'd he do it with San Francisco restaurateur and viewer Sam? Oh, why? Okay. That's a segment that she does,
yeah.
right?
Why do you do it?
Sorry, I only have so much bandwidth for so much. My God. All right. I blame it on the producer. I mean,
Do you know who I am?
I mean, say,
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Tony, love you. Thank you for stepping up.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah,
Kim,
thanks, Tony.
you.
Thanks, Tony.
And thank you, everybody.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow and Mark's Madness.
Out of
Have a good
time.
one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.